come. Hey, there's a reading tonight. Bring everybody. Hey, come to the reading tonight. It's going to be great. Bring everybody you know. 6 poets at the 6th Gallery. Kenneth Rexroth, MC. Remarkable collection of angels, all gathered at once in the same spot. Wine, music, dancing girls, serious poetry, free sartori. Small collection for wine and postcards. Charming event. Hey, how are you? Yeah, come on in, come on in. I think there's some room up in back. There's probably some chairs stacked up in back there. Hey, how you doing? Come on in, come on. It's okay. It's a little crowded, so you may have to stand up in back or sit down in front on the floor. We're probably breaking a few million fire codes, but oh well. What? No, we can't start yet. Jack's still out getting wine. Oh, great, finally. Okay, all right. Here you go, pass it around. Now, the evening at the 6th began with Kenneth Rexroth standing up there and talking about San Francisco like it's Barcelona at the time of the Spanish anarchists. Philip LaMancha read first, then McClure, then Gary Snyder reading beautiful lines about nature and spirit, then Phil Whalen, soft and gentle, a brief intermission, and I'm called to the podium to read. I want to read a new poem entitled Howl for Carl Solomon. I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness, starving, hysterical, naked, dragging themselves through the Negro streets at dawn, looking for an angry fix. Angel-headed hipsters, burning for the ancient heavenly connection to the starry dynamo and the machinery of night, who poverty and tatters and hollow-eyed and high sat up smoking in the supernatural darkness of cold water flats floating across the tops of cities contemplating jazz, who bared their brains to heaven under the L and saw Mohammedan angels staggering on tenement roofs illuminated, who passed through universities with radiant, cool eyes, hallucinating Arkansas and Blake-like tragedy among the scholars of war, and who were expelled from the academies for crazy and publishing obscene odes on the windows of the skull, who cowered in unshaven rooms in underwear, burning their money in wastebaskets and listening to the terror through the wall, who got busted in their pubic beards, returning through Laredo with a belt of marijuana for New York, who ate fire in paint hotels, or drank turpentine in Paradise Alley death, or purgatory their torsos night after night with dreams, with drugs, with waking nightmares, alcohol and cock and endless balls, who sank all night in submarine light of Bickford's, floated out and sat through the stale beer afternoon in desolate fugazis, listening to the crack of doom on a hydrogen jukebox, who talked continuously 70 hours from park to pad to bar to Bellevue to museum to the Brooklyn Bridge, a lost battalion of platonic conversationalists jumping down the stoops, off fire escapes, off windowsills, off Empire State, out of the moon, yakety-yakking, vomiting, screaming, whispering facts and memories and anecdotes and eyeball kicks and shocks of hospitals and jails and wars, who studied Plotinus, Poe, St. John of the Cross, telepathy and Bach Kabbalah, because the cosmos instinctively vibrated at their feet in Kansas, who loaned it through the streets of Idaho, seeking visionary Indian angels, who were visionary Indian angels, who disappeared into the volcanoes of Mexico, leaving behind nothing but the shadow of dungarees and the lava and ash of poetry scattered in fireplace Chicago, and who who reappeared on the West Coast investigating the FBI in beards and shorts with big pacifist eyes, sexy in their dark skin, who burned cigarette holes in their arms, protesting the narcotic tobacco haze of capitalism, who distributed super-communist pamphlets in Union Square, weeping and undressing, while the sirens of Los Alamos wailed them down and wailed down Wall, and the Staten Island Ferry also was wailing, and Bird was wailing the most at Birdland, who bit detectives in the neck and shrieked with delight in police cars for committing no crime but their own wild cooking, pederasty, and intoxication, who howled on their knees in the subways and were dragged off the roofs waving genitals and manuscripts, who let themselves be fucked in the ass by saintly motorcyclists and screamed with joy, who blew and were blown by those human seraphim, the sailors, caresses of Atlantic and Caribbean love, who hiccuped endlessly trying to giggle, but wound up with a sob behind a partition in a Turkish bath when the blonde and naked angel came to pierce them with a sword, who went out whoring in Colorado in myriad stolen night cars, MC, secret hero of these poems, Coxman and Adonis of Denver, joy to the memory of his innumerable lays of girls, who sweetened the snatches of a million girls trembling in the sunset and were red-eyed in the morning, but prepared to sweeten the snatches of sunrise, who copulated, ecstatic and insatiate with a bottle of beer, a sweetheart, a package of cigarettes and a candle, and fell off the bed and continued along the floor and down the hall, and ended fainting on the wall with a vision of ultimate cunt and cum illuminating the last jism of consciousness. Who walked all night with their shoes full of blood on the snowbank docks, waiting for a door in the East River to open to a room full of steam heat and opium, who threw potato salad at CCNY lecturers on Dadaism, and subsequently presented themselves on the granite steps of the madhouse with shaven head and harlequin speech of suicide, demanding instantaneous lobotomy, and who were given instead the concrete void of insulin, metrazole, electricity, psychotherapy, hydrotherapy, occupational therapy, ping pong, and amnesia, and who, in humorless protest, overturned only one symbolic ping pong table, resting briefly in catatonia, returning years later truly bald, except for a wig of blood and tears and fingers, to the visible madman doom of the mad towns of the East, with mother finally fucked, and the last fantastic book flung out of the tenement window, and the last door closed at 4 a.m., and the last telephone slammed on the wall in reply, and the last furnished room emptied down to the last piece of mental furniture, a yellow paper rose twisted on a wire hanger in the closet, and even that imaginary, nothing but a hopeful little bit of hallucination. Ah, Carl, while you are not safe, I am not safe. And now you are really in a total animal soup of time. What sphinx of cement and aluminum bashed open their skulls and ate up their brains and imaginations? Moloch. Moloch. Nightmare of Moloch. Mental Moloch. Moloch the loveless. Moloch the heavy judger of men. Moloch the incomprehensible prison. Moloch the crossbones soulless jailhouse and congress of sorrows. Moloch whose buildings are judgment. Moloch the vast stone of war. Moloch the stunned governments. Moloch whose mind is pure machinery. Moloch whose blood is running money. Moloch whose fingers are 10 armies. Moloch whose breast is a cannibal dynamo. Moloch whose ear is a smoking tomb. Moloch whose eyes are 1,000 blind windows. Moloch whose skyscrapers stand in the long streets like endless Jehovahs. Moloch whose factories dream and croak in the fog. Moloch whose smokestacks and antennae crowd the cities. Moloch whose love is endless oil and stone. Moloch whose soul is electricity and banks. Moloch whose poverty is the specter of genius. Moloch whose fate is a cloud of sexless hydrogen. Moloch in whom I sit lonely. Moloch in whom I dream angel. Crazy in Moloch, cocksucker in Moloch, lack love and manless in Moloch. Carl Solomon, I'm with you in Rockland where you're madder than I am. I'm with you in Rockland where you must feel very strange. I'm with you in Rockland where you imitate the shade of my mother. I'm with you in Rockland where you laugh at this invisible humor. I'm with you in Rockland where we are great writers on the same dreadful typewriter. I'm with you in Rockland where the faculties of the skull no longer admit the worms of the senses. I'm with you in Rockland where you scream in a straitjacket that you're losing the actual game of the ping pong of the abyss. I'm with you in Rockland where 50 more shocks will never return your soul to its body from its pilgrimage to a cross in the void. I'm with you in Rockland where you accuse your doctors of insanity and plot the Hebrew socialist revolution against the fascist national Golgotha. I'm with you in Rockland where we hug and kiss the United States under our bed sheets, the United States that coughs all night and won't let us sleep. I'm with you in Rockland when we wake up electrified out of our comas by our own souls' airplanes roaring over the roofs. They've come to drop angelic bombs. The hospital illuminates itself. Imaginary walls collapse. Oh, skinny legions, run outside! Oh, starry-spangled shock of mercy, the eternal war is here. Oh, victory, forget your underwear, we're free. I'm with you in Rockland. In my dreams, you walk dripping from a sea journey on the highway across America in tears to the door of my cottage in the western night.